first evidence of intelligent life was discovered.
There are two ways to make space exciting. The first way is to throw in impossible maneuvers, flashing lights, and fireball explosions. The second way is you actually get thrown into real space. You're not fighting against made-up aliens, but against the sheer indifference of the universe itself. In this video, I'm going to show you why Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey is so awe-inspiring and epic that other films have no choice but to worship it. When it premiered in 1968, critics called it pretentious, but audiences made it the highest-grossing film of the year. Today it stands untouchable. The design of 2001 A Space Odyssey is a vision of order and control. Every line is straight, every curve geometric, every surface smooth. This is not the grimy industrial future that came later in Alien or Star Wars. It's a future built on symmetry and precision. Kubrick's sets and props were informed by engineers and aerospace experts. Look closer at the screens, they seem ahead of their time. They look so modern it could appear in a movie today. Kubrick used 16mm projectors synced perfectly to the camera, so what you see looks seamless and high resolution. Contrast that with the jittery, low-res CRT displays in sci-fi films from the 70s and 80s. Those screens look outdated, but not the ones in 2001. The spaceships were physical models where every detail is visible. Many composites were done in camera, and the rest were optical. The Discovery's corridors are long, white, and sterile, lit so evenly they feel infinite. The Hilton Space Station lounge feels like a real hotel lobby in orbit, with chairs and tables that look like they belong in design catalogs today. The centrifuge set is legendary, a massive wheel that rotated to create artificial gravity. Actors walked inside as the camera stayed fixed. That shot still stuns on a large screen. Christopher Nolan attempted something similar in Inception decades later. To simulate zero gravity, Kubrick used a variety of ingenious practical effects. For the pen floating in the shuttle, it was simply glued to a sheet of glass, which was then rotated. The suits are clean and functional. Notice how the apes are brown. The suits are brown, gray, white, or beige. There's nothing colorful about it, except when he finally wears red to go toe-to-toe with Hal, who's also represented by red. And when that's over and they return to a neoclassical room, he's wearing black and gray again. Even the casual clothing and hairstyles avoids trends, which is why the film doesn't feel locked to the 1960s. Typography in 2001 is as deliberate as the sets and costumes. Kubrick prefers sans serif fonts. The film opens with gill sans to set the tone. Interestingly, the zeros are replaced by capital O's. The Dawn of Man sequence shifts to a serif font for a more ancient feel. Once the story moves into space, everything goes back to sans serif. Futura's geometric forms fit perfectly with the film's clean, symmetrical design language. You see it on things like the zero-gravity toilet instructions, and later in the film you see Futura appear alongside Gill Sans. Kubrick's choices are never casual. Hal is designed reduced to the essential, a single red light, an unblinking eye, and a calm, measured voice that chills precisely because it never breaks.
Quite honestly, I wouldn't worry myself about that.
The monolith is equally simple in design, but black and rectangular, perfectly proportioned. The ratio is 1:4:9 in the original story. These are squares of 1, 2, and 3. However, in the movie, the aspect ratio is closer to 2:1 or maybe 2.2:1, hard to say. Which brings me to the aspect ratio of the film. 2001 was announced as a Cinerama film that was photographed in Super Panavision 70 using 65mm film stock with spherical lenses, and it produced an aspect ratio of 2.2:1. Is the monolith us watching the movie through the very same screen from the future? Who knows? All we know is Kubrick was meticulous. His symmetrical center framing creates a sense of balance and unease. These compositions emphasize the cold technological world the characters inhabited. But it also hints as to what the monolith is. It simply cannot be natural. The hard part was nailing the camera exposure correctly against everything else. Jeffrey Unsworth, the cinematographer, took more than 10,000 Polaroids to test everything. When you look at the lighting, you understand how modern it feels. The centrifuge glows from hidden strip lights. Control rooms are lit by their own screens and panels. The neoclassical room at the end is lit from the floor, creating an eerie sense of imbalance that tells you instantly something is off about the scenario. A modern film that borrows this lighting philosophy is Tron Legacy. Though created with digital cameras, 2001 was shot on film with deep blacks and minimal grain, and with the 8K restoration looks more glorious than it ever has. The music is unforgettable and is the soul of the film. Kubrick rejected a commissioned score and chose classical pieces that would last forever. The opening fanfare is now one of the most iconic sounds in cinema history, and the film doesn't have a background score. Space is loud enough. The foundation for all this was Arthur C. Clarke's short story, The Sentinel, but the script evolved into something larger as both Kubrick and Clarke collaborated to weave the story together. Kubrick wanted to explore man's relationship to the universe, with the budgetary constraints of the time. The story is told in various stages. The dawn of man shows us when man first discovered weapons. If someone asks you for a great example of pure cinema, you could do a lot worse than show them this opening sequence from 2001. I've analyzed this in great detail in another video, and I'll link to it in the description. The sequence ends with a breathtaking cut. The cut from bone to spacecraft is the greatest cut in cinema, period. Millions of years spanned in a single edit. What triggers the first evolution is a mysterious monolith. In the moon mission, Floyd's trip feels routine, even banal. Meeting, small talk, and a call to his daughter. What once was awe is now paperwork. And commercialization. Pan Am, Hilton, Bell, IBM, these familiar brands show where our priorities have shifted. When the monolith appears again, it's been excavated. We earned its revelation, and it heralds the next step in evolution. And this is a stage we will recognize all too well today: artificial intelligence, or AI. HAL is near perfect, but is also saddled by a survival instinct, which means the tool turns against the maker. In the film, we outsmart HAL, and as it dies, it sings Daisy. That was the first song ever recorded on a phonograph, a farewell to a century of invention. But the story's not over. HAL was just a one-off victory. What about the others? If AI can outthink and out-engineer us, what's to become of us? That's when the monolith appears again and brings us transcendence. Bowman is hurled through the Stargate into a space where time and reality bend. Kubrick and special effects supervisor Douglas Trumbull used slit-scan photography to create this psychedelic experience. It was a revolutionary technique that produced an otherworldly, mind-bending effect. You might think it's trivial, but the full gamut of colors that were captured on film stock cannot be reproduced by your phone or TV screens even today. He ages, dies, and is reborn as a star child, an evolution beyond biology, beyond limitation, beyond time itself. Kubrick left the ending open. If you love science and space, it will move you. And like Guernica, like Starry Night, it's a work of art that transcends its time. That is why 2001: A Space Odyssey shows what cinema can be. Eternal. However, if the glory of science and human enterprise isn't your concern, the film will appear slow. I get it. There are people who don't find the Mona Lisa, the pyramids of Egypt, or quantum mechanics interesting enough to warrant a second look. Their version of space is a fantasy that's like comfort food. Real space is terrifying. In reality, space is so vast and silent, ships drift like monuments, even if they are traveling at speeds we can't imagine today. And every direction you turn to, it feels eternal. Nothing answers you. The scariest part of it all is, even with 1,000,000 years of progress, mankind will not make a dent in the universe. And any alien species with more advanced technology than us will probably show us the same respect we show animals on Earth, or show other human beings we don't identify with. The beauty of 2001 is, like great music and a great book, it deepens on repeat viewings. To me, it's endlessly rewatchable. Spielberg called it the Big Bang of his generation. George Lucas said it could never be topped. Ridley Scott believed it killed the genre because nothing could equal it. Apollo astronauts were shown the film before their missions. I hope you understand 2001 doesn't work because of some camera or visual effects trickery or star power. It works because of the incredible attention to detail and a reverence for science that still feels modern half a century later. If you enjoyed this video, open the pod bay doors and tap like. Leave your thoughts in the comments and take the next step in evolution by subscribing. Maybe this video can serve as a monolith that draws more fans to the film. And if my videos have given you something of value, support me by watching my film A Count of 10. Streaming links are in the description.